All right, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Hooked on Football Podcast, Week 8 edition. Today, I'm breaking down 3 games for you all. 3 games that you might say are a little bit random. However, I think they are pretty interesting games. Real quick, how the format's going to work of this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight, followed by some statistics and what I think is the go-to pick. So the first game we're looking at is Minnesota at Iowa. Classic Big Ten rivalry, battle for the Floyd of Rosedale. The over-under is sitting at a daring 32.5 points, with the Hawks favored by 5.5. Iowa is currently sitting at an 8-game win streak against the Gophers. The Gophers have not won against the Hawks since 2014. Another thing I think that should be noted with this game is that Kirk Ferentz all-time is 18-6 against Minnesota. Looking back at previous games, these games are always generally pretty close. Blowouts do happen from time to time. However, they are kind of few and far between. I think this is an interesting spot for Minnesota. They're coming off a bye week. They've struggled big time this season, starting with an electric win against Nebraska to open up, followed by some huge embarrassing losses, including an overtime loss against Northwestern. Despite all the struggles, Minnesota is somehow only 1 game behind the Hawks in the Big Ten West. So technically, 1 win against the Hawks for Minnesota would propel them in the driver's seat of the Big Ten West. But to say the least, the Gophers will definitely have some motivation for this game going into Iowa City. I'm not even going to get into the Iowa offense. If you've been paying any attention to college football this year, you already know what is going on with that offense. However, an area that is definitely better than what I have been saying, but I still don't think it's up to that elite level like it was last year, is their defense. Their defense is elite in the air. They have a very good passing defense. However, I really don't think their run defense is anything too special. They're averaging right around 127 yards per game, which is 6th worst in the Big Ten. And Minnesota actually offensively is one of the better teams rushing the ball. They're averaging right around 180 yards per game. Iowa is averaging 130 yards per game rushing this year. By the way this game is headed, I think it's surely going to be a running dominant football match with neither of the teams being able to pass the ball. So I did say Minnesota's coming off a bye week. In the last 6 years, or never mind, 5 years, for some reason in one of those years they had 2 bye weeks. Not sure what was going on there, but PJ Fleck is 4-2 coming off bye weeks. So in 2018, the Gophers actually came off a bye week and played the Hawks that next week. The result was Iowa won 48-31. So my predictions for this game, deep down, I really do think it's going to stay under 32. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot. I think this is going to be a fast game. So I'm not comfortable with the Hawks covering, or let alone Minnesota covering, but I will go with the Hawks money line. I feel pretty confident with that one. Our next one we're going to be looking at is Utah versus USC. Probably easily the second best game of the day. Utah heads into the Coliseum as touchdown dogs against the Trojans. This does seem pretty steep considering the troubles USC had last week, and as well as Utah taking care of business last week. But I do really think that the Utes could be in trouble. For the first time in a long time, it was not USC's defense that was the problem for USC. In fact, 28 points came off turnovers in USC's game against Notre Dame last week. USC's defense also held the Fighting Irish's offense to only 250 total yards. It was the offense that was a total disaster. Caleb Williams threw for under 200 yards passing, and also coupled with 3 interceptions. I really don't see the USC offense looking that lost again, even against the stout Utah defense. So to give you a little anecdote about Caleb Williams, last season he played one of his worst games in the beginning of October against Washington State. He threw for just over 180 yards and 1 interception. However, he followed that game up, throwing for 380 yards and 5 touchdowns that next coming week against you guessed it, the Utah Utes. Utah, I know, has a great defense, but it doesn't really seem to phase Caleb too much. I know in the Pac-12 championship game, Caleb was sacked a staggering 7 times. However, I do like USC to bounce back here, covering against the Utes. So to end our 3-card preview here, we have the best game of the week. Penn State taking on Ohio State at the Horseshoe, 11 a.m. So in the past 20 years, Penn State has only beat Ohio State 4 times. 2 times in the Horseshoe and 2 times back at Happy Valley. Ohio State has not lost for 6 years. And actually, because of that, from a historical standpoint, I do like the Nittany Lions to win this game. I think they could almost be due for a win. Ohio State in past history has never had a streak longer than 5. Both come into Saturday with previous weeks' blowout wins against their opponents. To make this game as simple as possible, I like Penn State on the money line to win in the horseshoe. I like the historical logic of Penn State winning, but also the mission I feel like Coach James Franklin is on with the Penn State team. I think the injury-fated Buckeyes do slip up. At the time of recording this, Coach Day is hopeful that his stars will be playing in Emeka Egbuka and Travion Henderson. But in my opinion, I think that's a bad sign for the Buckeyes that your coach is hopeful 3 days before the game. So at the time of whenever you're watching this, this could change. Maybe they are playing. Maybe you're watching this today, as in Saturday game day, and they are playing. But from everything that I've gathered and read, it's really looking doubtful that they're playing. And I do think with those two guys, Ohio State does beat Penn State. But even if they do play, considering they're coming off injuries and who knows how healthy they really are, I do like the Nittany Lions to win in Columbus. All right, so hey, thank you guys for watching our quick 3-game breakdown of Week 8 football. I know there's a lot of other great games, but we decided to pick these 3. As always, we appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video.